without further ado, I'm going to go through the names of the PAAN cast and the characters that they play, and then we'll go from there. So Pete is played by Berkan Dinser. I didn't mess that up. Wendy is Tova Weinberger. Lily is played by Nene Taylor. Denise Taylor. Captain Starkey is Jeremiah Lewis. Me is played by J.J. Smith. Captain Huck is R. Redden. Dante and Valdez by Dan Jake. Shaked. See, I knew I should have asked that. Elizabeth Diddy is playing several roles, and thankfully I don't have to pay her because I go broke. Erica Nicole is playing 3 roles, Maggie, Thomas, and Hammond. Guy Crawford playing Admiral Barry and Mr. James. Janet Clark is playing Lieutenant Clark. Jeremiah Lewis comes back to us with, I think, 7 or 8 roles, various. A lot of them are Huck related. Rod Thompson is playing Lieutenant Thompson. I'm playing a couple of very small roles because I'm not an actor and I don't play one on TV. And your narrator is Justin Hayward. So with that, I think we can get going.
PAAN, written by Tim Westland and J.E. Clark. Fade in. Exterior, space, Earth hanging there, front and center. The Earth isn't blue anymore. The oceans are putrid, the soil barren, the air poison. Way to go, humanity. Exterior, Denver, day. Thick pollution battles sunlight to a standstill. The Denver skyline is a graveyard of rusting metal skeletons. Interior Education Center, day. Dozens of students work at virtual workstations. Problems of every type scroll across their screens. Super, 87 years from now. Their teacher, Mr. James, 50s, walks among them, unimpressed by what he sees.
We have been covering xenobiology for weeks, people. How do you expect the Colony Board to choose you if you can't even master the basics of convergent evolution?
He approaches the station of a thin, wiry teen who is paying zero attention. This is Pete Darling, 15. Mr. James looks at Pete's monitor, sighs.
You're part of Mr. Zachary's work group, is that correct, Mr. Darling?
Pete looks pained at being called out.
Yes, sir.
Mr. James taps Pete's screen, pulls up stats, frowns.
You are aware that a lack of effort by one team member affects the entire team's score?
He glances over at Leo Zachary, 17. If kids still played, would be the asshole quarterback. Zach stares daggers at Pete.
Yes, sir.
Mr. James pulls up Zach's stats, overlays Pete's work, and makes a sound.
You've placed Mr. Zachary's colony scores in a precarious position.
He faces Pete.
You do realize that if by some miracle you're able to secure a ticket on the colony ship, your family goes as well?
Pete nods.
Well, then I would suggest that you triple your efforts. Perhaps your work group can help motivate you in ways I cannot.
Mr. James moves on to the next workstation. Pete looks at Zach. Zach drags his thumb across his throat. Exterior Education Center day. The school bell rings and teenagers file out, all of them wearing breathe masks. Pete bursts through the crowd like his arse is on fire. Close behind, Zach and 4 other boys chase after him. Exterior Forest of the Dead Trees day. Pete hides in the hollow of the dead tree, shaking with fear. Nearby, Zach and his crew run past, whooping and hollering. As the sound grows distant, He sighs with relief. But then, inches from Pete's ear.
You know what your problem is, Pete?
Terror on Pete's face as Zack fist slams in through the brittle wood of the dead tree. He rips Pete out of the crumbling tree and throws him into the middle of the group. The boys hold him.
I mean, aside being stupid, lazy, and predictable.
Pete cowers and his eyes well up. Then the worst thing possible happens. A wet stain appears on his pants. Zack sees it and snorts.
You're a coward.
Zack rips Pete's breath mask off. Pete gasps for breath.
Your dad must be so proud. Of your sister, I mean.
Zack leans in and whispers in Pete's ear.
Last thing the colony needs are losers like you. Probably get people killed.
Zack takes a step back, makes a fist. Interior, apartment building, day. An elevator door opens and Pete hobbles out, a beat-up mess. Black eye, cuts and scrapes, and a wet stain on his crotch. Interior, Valdez's apartment, day. Knock, knock. Pete's friend, Valdez, 16, looks through the peephole. Val clocks in at over 6 feet and is a bruiser. Just being friends with him makes you safe from bullies. Mostly safe. He opens the door and sees the damage.
When a girl says no, it means no, buddy.
Interior, bathroom, day. Pete examines his black eye. Valdez enters with a fresh pair of pants and underwear, sets them down.
Thanks. I'll probably need a belt.
Valdez turns to leave and Pete sees a red envelope in his back pocket. Colony red.
You made the cut?
Yeah, they think I'll make a good scout. Plus, my genetic profile says that...
A microsecond of envy, then Pete shakes Val's hand.
The colony need people like you, Val. Strong and brave.
Pete looks at himself in the mirror. Puny.
You want me to kick Zach's ass for you? I could hold him down while you kick him in the nuts a couple 100 times.
Pete's smile is slight, then he shakes his head.
I'm not going to let my problems get you knocked off the list.
Val smiles, slugs Pete's shoulder.
See? That's bravery talking. You just gotta back that up with a wicked karate chop.
Pete rolls his eyes, pushes Val out the door. Interior, Pete's bedroom, day. Pete on his bed stares at a poster taped to the ceiling. It's a planet. It's like Earth before people fucked it up. All blues and greens wrapped in puffy white clouds. Below it, in bold letters, morning, our second chance. Pete grabs his tablet and opens his colony app. He taps and an animation plays. Tiny cartoon astronauts build a cartoon spaceship. The name on the side, Adventurer. Once finished, they wave goodbye and the ship launches into hyperspace. As the stars speed by, the words 30 years later display. Adventurer bloop, exits hyperspace and orbits morning. Right behind it, 3 other ships just like it appear. Their names, Sure Thing, Charmed, Redemption. They merge into a single ship, a nearly complete ring. But it's missing one piece. Then another ship, bloops, in near them. It looks different from the others. Its name, Keystone. Keystone merges with the other ships. They form a ring. No. It activates and through it, Earth is visible. A direct portal from here to there. 100 ships pass through the gate and land on morning. Cartoon colonists disembark and smile. They are home. Pete's eyes taps the colony scores icon. His aptitude scores display. Each subject has a grade next to it. Pete is barely passing. Interior, kitchen, night. Pete chomps on his food. His mum, Margaret, 40s, and dad, Jason, 40s, watch him silently. His sister, Wendy, 16, smaller even than Pete, checks out Pete's black eye and bruises. She knows he's hurting, eats it up. She mimes crying. He doesn't like the attention.
What?
Hi.
Not talking about it.
Want me to kick their asses for you?
Wendy.
Colony scores
A
came out
tense
today.
silence, then
Colony scores came out today. I bet Pete's doing way better than anyone.
Jesus, Wendy.
Pete pushes his food away and stalks off. Exterior, roof, night. Pete lays on his back, stares up at the brown haze which blocks the stars. Wendy crawls out her window and plops down next to him.
Please go away.
Wendy remains silent for several seconds, then...
Zach's a lion, Pete. Every time you run, he's going to chase you down like prey unless you stand up to him.
Oh, is that why you're always busting my balls? Because you're a lion too?
Wendy stands, looks at Pete with defiance.
I'm a lioness, you moron. That's way cooler than being a stupid lion. And I bust your balls because we have 2 chances to get Mom and Dad on that colony ship.
She reaches down and grabs Pete by the shirt. He winces.
And you're blowing it. You need to man up, eat your fear, and shit out some bravery, got it?
Interior, medical classroom, day. Dressed in scrubs, Wendy digs into a cadaver while her desk partner, Ben, 16, watches queasily.
How can you do that?
Wendy pokes at the heart and lungs.
The colony needs doctors.
She removes the heart, hands it to Ben. He pulls away.
Gross.
As if on cue, the classroom door opens and a group of colony administrators enter. Ben sees them and perks up. They speak to the teacher. Things get heated. They hand her a red envelope. The eyes of the entire class focus on it. The teacher swallows her anger and addresses the class.
Attention, class. As you know, those citizens who exemplify the best qualities of humanity are gifted a seat on the colony ship. Those fine individuals and their families.
Ben removes his surgical gloves and lab coat.
Will pave the way for the rest of us.
Wendy looks at the teacher, then at Ben.
Their hard work will be rewarded by...
Ben walks up, grabs the envelope and leaves with the colony admins. The teacher plops into her chair, dispirited. Wendy makes the connection. The fix is in. Fury forms on her face. She confronts the teacher.
It's rigged, isn't it?
Wendy, I didn't know.
Boom! Crash! Something massive crashes to the ground outside. The students don their breathe masks, duck under tables, except for Wendy. She puts her mask on and races outside. Exterior medical school building, day. A huge chunk of corroded dome has collapsed nearby. Wendy runs up, finds the administrators and Ben standing next to their smashed transport. Everybody appears fine. Then Wendy sees the driver inside the wreckage. She races over, struggles to pull him from the vehicle.
Ben, help me!
An admin prods Ben to action, but he's a deer in headlights. Wendy points at one of the admins.
Call an emergency med team! Now!
The admin makes the call while Wendy performs triage.
Victim is unconscious. Crushed right arm, multiple lacerations, broken collarbone, and
His breathing is labored. She listens to his chest.
collapsed lung.
She looks around, sees 2 things in the wreckage, a shard of glass and a pen. She disassembles the pen, keeping only the outer tube shell. She rips the driver's shirt open, finds the right spot, and expertly slices into the man's flesh with the glass. Ben faints. Wendy sinks the pen cup into the wound. The driver's lung inflates with an icky sucking sound. The driver breathes easier, but then begins coughing. Wendy looks at the dome, sees the poisonous air flowing in. She grabs his mask, but it's damaged. Without a thought, she puts her own mask on the driver. As he stabilizes, the pollution takes a toll on Wendy. The world begins to spin. Interior Darling apartment, night. Pete practices his karate moves against a hollow combatant as the Margaret cleans dinner dishes. The front door opens. Wendy stumbles in, grimy and coughing.
You're supposed to call if you're going to be late, young lady.
Margaret rounds the corner and sees Wendy.
Oh my God, Wendy.
Wendy reaches into her jacket, pulls out a red envelope. Margaret sees it, stops in her tracks.
Jason!
Margaret takes the envelope, hands shaking. She opens it reverently. Jason runs in as Margaret reads.
Congratulations. The Colony Selection Board has chosen you and your family.
Jason hugs Wendy and begins to cry. Margaret joins in. Pete stands there, numb. Interior, Colony Indoctrination Center, day. Hundreds of colonists are seated in a large auditorium. Pete, Wendy, Margaret, and Jason are among them. A man walks out onto the stage and looks upon the crowd. This is Captain Kenneth Starkey, 50s. His perfect military bearing is softened by a warm smile and kind eyes. He's the type who leads by example, not by fear.
Good morning. I am Captain Starkey. All know me. Over the next 6 months, I will come to know each of you.
Wendy is starstruck. A scrappy, scruffy-looking girl sidles up beside her. This is Lily, 15, and she's a smart-ass ball of energy. She sees how Wendy stares at Captain Starkey.
When you two get hitched, you're going to have kids right away, or...
Most of you are here because a family member earned a red envelope. This was your admission ticket, but it wasn't free.
Lily offers her hand to Wendy.
I'm Lily.
Wendy shakes Lily's hand, but hangs on Starkey's every word.
Well, aren't you the charming conversationalist?
Everyone watches Starkey click through a series of slides.
Each of you will pay for your spot with blood, sweat, and tears. You will learn the skills needed to survive on an alien planet.
The slides flick from planetfall campsite to 1, 5, 10, 20, and 50-year expansion goals.
Whether you're a farmer or a shuttle pilot, no job is more important than any other. The elitism that helped destroy Earth will not exist on morning.
He turns to the presentation.
Failure to excel means removal from the colony list.
Wendy looks over at Pete.
Those who make the final cut will be the first to land on...
A picture of morning appears and the crowd cheers.
Morning, humanity's new home. The first 4 colony supply ships are waiting for us. Let's not keep their sleeping crews waiting a moment longer than necessary. Thank you.
Starkey walks off stage to thunderous applause. The clapping subsides as colonists receive alerts on their wrist comps. They all read, "Your assignment." Lily shows Explorer. She whoops and runs off. Wendy shows Medical Team. She fist pumps. Jason's reads Farming. This gets a big smile. Margaret's reads Administration. Pete hesitates, taps. His reads Childcare. What the fuck? Interior Childcare Center, day. Pete wrangles a dozen kids like an expert. The kids love him, and he loves them. Super. 1 month later. A cherubic little boy, Hammond, 6, barrels around the room as fast as his feet will carry him. Another boy, Thomas, 7, sticks his foot out and Hammond goes down hard and bursts into tears. Pete sees everything and motions for Thomas to come over.
Why is Hammond crying?
'Cause he's a crybaby.
Pete shakes his head.
He's crying because he doesn't have a big brother to protect him.
I have a big brother. His name is Jake.
Thomas beams at the thought of his brother.
I know. He's 10, right?
11.
And he takes care of you? Make sure nobody hurts you, right?
Thomas nods.
What if you didn't have a big brother?
The mere thought of this makes Thomas uncomfortable. Pete places a gentle hand on his shoulder.
Hammond doesn't have someone bigger than him to protect him. Teach him how to be brave. Find him if he gets lost.
Thomas looks at Hammond, who still has wet cheeks.
Ham needs a big brother. Can you think of anyone who's brave enough and smart enough to?
Thomas' face lights up. He raises his hand urgently. Pete feigns surprise.
Wait, you want to be Ham's big brother?
Thomas nods enthusiastically.
I don't know. It's a lot of work.
More nodding as he starts to edge towards Ham.
That's great, Thomas. Do you think maybe I could be a big brother to both of you?
Thomas jumps up and down with glee.
It's a deal then. Shake on it.
Thomas shakes his hand and runs over to help Ham. Pete smiles. One less bully in the world. A bell rings, signalling the end of Pete's shift. The kids pull at his shirt, begging him not to go.
Time to go, space monkeys, unless you want me to eat you raw!
The kids scatter laughing. Exterior hallway, day. Pete exits the childcare center and runs into Val.
Yo, hungry?
Mooshed. I'm doubling up again to increase my value.
Planetary exploration not exciting enough for you?
There you go, thinking in 2 dimensions again. Come on.
Val breaks into a jog. Pete is close on his heels.
Any progress with your girlfriend?
Lily's not into me, bro.
Maybe she likes puny, pathetic types. Mind if I...
Val pushes Pete and kicks into high gear. Interior flight training center, night. Val is strapped inside a flight simulator and struggles to control his vehicle as it docks to a space station. Pete watches, frustrated.
Pitch, Val! Pitch! Not yaw.
Behind Pete, Captain Starkey enters silently.
5-second bird on starboard thrusters will... No! Oh,
Val does it all wrong and the ship spins out of control.
Jesus, you suck at this.
You enjoy telling Mr. Valdez how to pilot his rig?
Surprised, Pete tries to recover his composure.
It's not about enjoyment, sir. I was trying to help him because he sucks at it.
Starkey considers, then swipes his ident card on the sim.
Impress me.
Pete hesitates, then gets in the simulator. Interior simulator control room, day. Starkey enters, fires up the rig, taps the comm unit.
Ready when you are.
Intercut between Pete and Captain Starkey. All strapped in, Pete's craft takes off. Starkey watches the stats. He makes the sim more challenging and Pete adapts instantly. The kid is good. Very good. Interior simulator control room, day. Starkey and Val watch Pete pilot his craft.
I'll never be that good at anything.
A take-charge guy like you has more options than you think.
Interior hallway, night. Val slaps Pete on the back, so proud.
You're not a fighter. You're a starfighter.
Hey, I can teach you how to pilot if you, I don't know, turn me into a killing machine.
I suck as a pilot, but Captain Starkey thinks I might have leadership potential.
They high-five as they reach Pete's family's compartment. The door opens and Captain Starkey is there, talking with Jason and Margaret. They see Pete and flush with pride. Interior Medical Training Center, Operating Theatre, night. Pete sits on the observation level watching Wendy working with real doctors as they operate on a simulated colonist. Interior hallway, night. Pete fawns over his new pilot training ident card. Wendy walks out and Pete jumps in front of her, showing his new ident card front and center. She looks at it, unimpressed, and keeps walking.
Gee, Pete, that's great. I'm glad you're pushing your limits.
She stops, glares at him. Colony training has matured her.
Taking care of kids isn't macho enough? Is that it?
Captain Starkey said.
Captain Starkey said. Captain Starkey said. Those kids love you, Pete. Hammond idolizes you. You're finally a hero to someone and you throw that all away? Be what? A jumped up bus driver? Great decision.
Interior hollow training day. Val and Pete grapple in a combo of wrestling and jiu-jitsu. Super. Month 2. Val swings and grabs at Pete, but he's a blur and lands a blow after blow on Val.
Man, where did you get so good?
Tripling up, pilot training, child care, and close quarter hand-to-hand.
So your plan is to beat up a bunch of toddlers and steal a shuttle?
Val gets Pete in a bear hug, so Pete goes for leverage. He lifts his leg high, snaps them down. The momentum flips Val over Pete's shoulder and flat on his back. Interior, Keystone's Bridge, day. Subspace is a kaleidoscope of color through the viewport. Super. Month 6.
Navigation.
Lieutenant Clark, 40, is the never-switched-off type who is only happy when she has performed her duties flawlessly.
Emergence from hyperspace in 5, 4, 3.
The view on the screen shifts and normal space returns. Earth sits right in the middle of the screen. The crew cheers, high fives all round.
I judge this vessel hale and hearty. Mr. Chen, please prep Keystone to receive her colonists.
Ensign Chen, 24, salutes and hustles out.
Ladies and gentlemen, by this time tomorrow we'll have raised anchor and set sail 2 stars to the left and straight on till morning.
Interior, Pete is asleep in a ball pit as kids play around him. His wrist comp buzzes. He looks at it with bleary eyes. It reads, General Assembly, 1 hour. Interior, General Assembly area, day. Starkey stands where he did 6 months earlier. Colonists are expectant, but there are fewer now. Wendy and Pete look for their parents.
This is an historic moment, the one you've been working toward for the last 6 months. But it's also a sad day because some of the people we've come to know and love will be staying behind.
Wendy's eyes go wide with realization. She panics.
Mom? Mom!
Then she sees her dad. His expression tells the tale.
Daddy?
They hug, tears flowing. Others are doing the same for missing family members.
I know how hard this must seem. Like you, I make the journey without my wife and children.
The words force Starkey's eyes to glisten.
This is our final test. Are each of us prepared to lose the most important people in our lives and keep going?
Pete wanders through the colonists.
Some of you will choose to stay.
No sign of Val or his family.
We'll miss those who stay behind, but we will not mourn them. Instead, we will do what needs to be done.
A few weep and run out of the hall. Most stay. Starkey looks over the remaining colonists.
Keystone launches in 24 hours. The shuttle leaves in 2.
With that, he turns and walks off the stage. Wendy weeps into her dad's chest. Pete walks up, numb. Jason hands Wendy a note. Wendy reads it and freaks out.
She's gone already? You knew and you didn't tell us?
She thought it would be easier if she left before.
Jason tries to hug her, but she pulls away.
You're just gonna leave her here. Alone.
Wendy, this is the only way we can...
Wendy slaps Jason across the face, tears streaming.
No! You're leaving Mom to die! I never want to talk to you again.
Wendy turns and runs out. Interior, shuttle launch gantry day. Captain Starkey watches the colonists enter the shuttle. Pete and Wendy approach, sullen. Jason is far behind. Exterior, shuttle launch site day. The shuttle's engines start pre-ignition. Interior, shuttle day. Everybody is strapped in and exchanging a range of emotions. The only one who seems enthusiastic is Lily.
What's wrong with you people? We're going into space, for crying out loud.
Captain Starkey's voice chimes in the intercom.
Flight time to Keystone is 30 minutes. You will experience weightlessness for about 20 minutes, so please take note of the vomit bags on the back of every seat.
Pete touches his bag, looks worried. He glances at Lily, who rolls her eyes, acts like she's barfing, then giggles. Jason puts his hands on Pete's, grips it tight, smiles. The engine kicks in and everyone is pinned to their seats. Exterior, shuttle launch site day. The shuttle rises on a column of fire. Interior, shuttle passenger compartment day. The G-forces press hard, then the engines cut out and everyone goes weightless.
Welcome to space, everyone. Please remain seated until we dock with Keystone.
Lily takes that as a challenge. She unbuckles and launches herself, performing amazing zero-G acrobatics. Pete's sadness lightens as Lily passes overhead. It takes less than a second for him to make his decision. He unbuckles and joins Lily, testing their limits. Others clap and smile at their antics. Interior, shuttle cockpit day. Captain Starkey watches Lily and Pete float around on one of his monitors. Interior, shuttle passenger compartment day. Pete floats above Wendy, who looks green around the gills. She can't hold it, grabs a bath bag and blows chunks.
Pete, darling, report to the cockpit, please.
Peter grimaces, looks over and sees Lily already back in her seat, looking innocent as a baby lamb. Interior, shuttle cockpit day. The door opens and Pete floats in.
Take a seat.
Pete floats over and sits in one of the empty seats.
I meant this one.
Captain Starkey vacates the pilot seat.
Impress me.
Pete floats over and takes the controls. He tries to hide a smile and fails miserably. Then he sees it through the main viewport. Keystone grows closer by the second. Wow. Exterior, Keystone day. The shuttle approaches Keystone and docks smoothly. Interior, Keystone day. The colonists enter and are guided to their stasis pods by the command crew. One by one, the pods chuff closed. Captain Starkey guides Pete, Wendy, and Jason to the pods adjacent to those of the command crew.
Mr. Darling, you and Wendy will go into your pods. I'm keeping Pete here for a while to show him the ropes.
Jason beams with pride. Wendy still looks green. Pete hugs them both.
See you in 30 light years.
Jason tries to hug Wendy, but she pushes him away and enters her pod. Downcast, Jason steps into his own. Captain Starkey taps in a code on each and the stasis fields initiate. Then he turns to Pete.
The Council wouldn't let me teach you how to operate the haptic controls or the gate launch sequence, but they can't stop me now.
Pete's smile is literally ear to ear. Starkey pins a pilot insignia on Pete's shirt. Starkey shows Pete the signet ring on his right hand.
It all begins with this.
Exterior, space, night. The Keystone powers up its drives and zoom! Launches into hyperspace. Next stop, 2 stars to the left, straight on till morning. Exterior colony planet, aka morning, day. We're way above the planets humans have dubbed morning. Super, 30 years later. It's beautiful. Like Earth before man fucked it all up. Zoom! The Keystone drops out of warp. Interior, Keystone's bridge, night. The bridge computers awaken. Screens come to life. Captain Starkey's stasis pod beeps to life and opens. He steps out, gets his bearings, then opens the command crew stasis pods. Pete's too.
I gotta pee.
Lieutenant Clark leans out of her pod looking around.
Are we there yet?
The crew moves towards the forward viewport and stares at their destination. Morning. It's beautiful. Thompson wipes tears from his eyes.
Pussy.
Pete notices a blinking red console light.
Captain, proximity alert.
Starkey's rare smile disappears. Fun time is over.
Stations. Clark, I need position and trajectory of anything larger than a marble within 20,000 clicks. I don't want Keystone turned into Swiss cheese.
On it.
Thompson, cycle up nav drive and maneuvering thrusters.
Aye, sir.
Chen, I need meteor defenses charged and online.
Chen is on it.
Pete, bring communications online. Sooner we link up with the other ships, the better all.
Phantom, sir. 12K clicks aft.
Exterior, space, night. The view shifts from the Keystone and zooms 12,500 clicks over to the 4 Connolly ships. Each one of them is slightly different design. All are linked in an incomplete circle. Keystone is the missing piece. Interior, Keystone, night. Starkey moves to Clark's station, taps to bring the scanner up on the main screen. A 3D scan of the colony ships appears.
Mr. Thompson, bring us around and make for the portal ring.
5 minutes of prelim burn, sir.
Starkey turns to Pete.
Go wake your family.
Captain, mass readings on Redemption are all wrong.
Starkey taps the screen and the colony ships go transparent. The outline of an alien ship appears behind Redemption.
Oh my...
God.
The party hasn't even begun and already there's a crasher. Exterior, space, night. The alien ship is dug into Redemption like a tick. But where the Keystone is boner-inducingly futuristic, the alien ship looks like someone has slipped together pieces of a dozen ships, none of which share a common design. As if on cue, it detaches and heads straight for the Keystone. It may look like a piece of shit, but it sure can move. Interior, Keystone, night. The screen shows the alien ship closing on Keystone.
And I need telemetry on that craft. Clark, scan the colony ships.
Chen performs the scan, looks confused.
Sir, the alien ship it's a pile of junk, sir. It's leaking atmosphere like a screen door on a submarine. Hull fractures all over the place. Structurally speaking, it's a death trap.
Clark, scan our ships.
Clark taps. What she sees shocks her.
No life signs, sir.
3 minutes, engines ready, sir.
Starkey zooms in on Redemption's port side. A ragged hole is cut into her side.
We might not have 3 minutes.
Starkey turns to Pete.
Get in your pod. That's an order.
Pete cowers, but he doesn't get in his pod. Exterior, space, night. The alien ship pulls to within 100 meters of Keystone. Interior, Keystone, night. On screen, alien cannons fire on Keystone.
Alien ship is fired on us, sir.
Evasive. I want distance between us and that ship now.
Are those grappling lines?
Yup, grappling lines shoot out towards Keystone.
Why aren't we moving, Thompson?
Maneuvering thruster is coming online.
Exterior, Keystone, night. The Keystone is huge and the thrusters are feeble. The grappling lines latch onto it magnetically. Interior, Keystone, night. Alarms blare.
I want options, people.
Small arms and particle beam drills are in cargo, sir, but we'll never get to them in time.
Exterior Keystone Night. The alien craft reels itself towards the Keystone. Interior Keystone Night. The hull of the ship vibrates as the two ships meet.
This wasn't how it was supposed to go.
He sees Pete still standing nearby.
I thought I ordered you to.
Blam! The hull is breached with explosives. The crew wait for alien nightmares to rush in, but none do. An old man enters. His clothes are in shambles and he's filthy from head to toe. Starkey looks at the man, then recognition hits.
Captain Smee?
The man, Smee, 60s, looks directly at Captain Starkey. His eyes are dark and filled with shame. Some points at Starkey. Smee points at Starkey and speaks in an alien language.
The one in the green uniform.
Then the chaos begins. Alien commandos stream in and around Smee and head for the crew. These are the Hook. Roughly humanoid, covered in spines and built for battle, they move towards the crew with murderous intent. Starkey moves to engage, but Clark stops him.
They want you, sir. I can't let that happen.
Starkey tries to push past her, but she uses her close combat skills to force Starkey into his pod. She closes the door and yells to him through the window.
Find a way to warn Earth.
She salutes Starkey and slaps the emergency eject button. At the same time, a huck blade slices into her neck and blood spatters the pod glass viewport. Exterior, the Keystone Night. Starkey's pod ejects and falls forward to the planet below. The alien ship fires on it, winging a thruster. Interior, Captain Starkey's pod, Night. Starkey screams, knowing that his crew and their precious cargo are doomed and there's nothing he can do to stop it. His pod hits atmosphere and begins to glow red. Interior, Keystone's bridge, Night. The Huck commandos attack the crew with blade weapons and trauma batons. No lasers or esoteric weapons. Death will be painful and bloody. The crew falls before the Huck, all except Thompson. He manages to knock a sword from an attacker, then battles the monster hand to hand. Big as he is, he's outmatched. Then he sees Pete.
Pete! Grab it! The sword!
Thompson's eyes beg Pete to grab the sword, save his life. Pete is so filled with fear that he just turns away. The Hug Commando overcomes Thompson, sinks its fangs deep into Thompson's neck and tears his head off. Pete does nothing but cower. Then the alien leader enters, Captain Huck. He's bigger than the rest, bred to be stronger, smarter, and more intimidating. He's also missing his left forearm. The Hug Commandos bow, rise, then salute him in unison. Formalities done, Captain Huck evaluates the scene. As he passes each stasis pod, he looks inside. Then he notices Pete. He grabs Pete with razor-sharp claws that slice into Pete's chest. Pete screams in a combination of fear and pain. Captain Huck carries Pete to a nearby pod, Jason's pod. Huck roars, and Captain Smee and a commando rush over.
Your new lord and benefactor, Captain Hook, is a benevolent master and only kills those who threaten him.
Huck points at Jason's pod. The commando opens it and rams a sword right into Jason's chest. Jason is conscious long enough to see Pete's anguished face before he dies. Pete screams as his dad collapses. He lashes out at Captain Huck, but the alien is too big.
The defenseless have a protector in our lord.
Huck carries Pete to the next pod. Inside, Wendy is frozen in stasis. She looks tiny in the pod.
No! Please. Not her too.
The tone of Smee's imperial delivery never changes, but his message does.
You gotta stop screaming, kid, or he'll kill all of you.
Pete is beyond freaking out. He doesn't hear a word. Captain Huck gestures and Smee presses the eject button. Wendy's pod launches towards the surface of the planet. Believing Wendy dead, Pete sobs.
He sends everybody who isn't an immediate threat to the planet's surface. When you get there, hide, all right? Run and hide.
Captain Smee slaps Pete to snap him out of it. No effect.
I have delivered your message of goodwill, my lord.
Captain Huck shoves Pete into his pod, hits eject. Exterior, the Keystone Night. Pete's pod rockets down towards the surface of the planet. Interior, Pete's pod night. Pete cries as the pod plummets into the atmosphere. Exterior, planet morning, day. This might not be Eden as described in the Bible, but it's pretty darn close. Endless vistas, clear streams, a bluer-than-blue sky. Perfection. Captain Starkey's pod splashes a contrail scar through the virgin sky as it heads towards the planet. Another contrail forms behind it. That's Wendy. Then another, Pete. Then more. Many more. Interior, the Keystone Night. The alien crew walk among the bodies and blood. A Huck crewman approaches Captain Huck and reports in their guttural tongue. Captain Huck doesn't like what he hears, so he backhands the crewman and roars orders at him.
Protocol chica from Kala, human.
Captain Huck shoves Smee towards the main control panel. He gestures for him to get to work. Exterior, surface of morning, day. Pods hurtle towards the planet, then slow on reaction jets. Captain Starkey's pod splutters as only 3 or 4 jets kick in. His pod is sent careening away from the others. The pods belonging to the children follow a single course like a flock of birds. On the ground. The pods land in a tight formation, 30 in all. One by one, their doors open and children step out. Wendy emerges from her pod and is struck with wonder. Grass, trees, blue sky, creatures of every size crawl and run and fly everywhere, all of it alien, all of it wonderful. Children of all ages emerge from their pods, all of them react like Wendy. Then Lily is next to her, and Dante, 15. They laugh and dance and whoop and holler with joy. Then Lily notices that something isn't right.
Where are the adults?
Wendy and the older kids slow to a stop. Realization hits her like a ton of bricks.
Why'd we come down in pods instead of the shuttle?
Hammond walks up and tugs on Wendy's sleeve.
Where's Mom and Dad?
Wendy looks up at the sky, uncertain.
I'm sure they'll be here soon, kiddo.
Wendy sees Pete's pod. She approaches it. The door is open. Inside, Pete cowers, knees to chest. His eyes are consumed by fear and locked in a 1,000-yard stare.
Pete, what are you?
Then she sees the blood on his shirt, the open wounds.
What happened? Why are you bleeding?
Pete shudders and cries uncontrollably. Wendy leans in and hugs him, stunned and confused. The children gather closer. One by one, they all begin to cry. Interior, Captain Starkey's pod, day. Starkey's pod lies on its side, mangled from a bad landing. Interior, Captain Starkey's pod, day. Starkey is out like a light, all cut up and bruised. An electrical short causes smoke to waft up like a ghost. Outside, a shadow glides past the viewport. The smoke gets to Starkey. He coughs awake. The shadow lands on the viewport, blocks the light. Starkey groggily smacks the hatch release button. Nothing. The shadow splits into 1,000 individual somethings. They skitter all over the pod. Starkey pushes the door, cries out in pain. The smoke gets worse and Starkey passes out. Then the pod door chuffs and slowly opens a crack. And in crawl the tiny somethings by the 100. Each is the size of a walnut with a shell like burnished steel. Dozens swarm Starkey. The others work to open the door. One by one, they begin to glow. Exterior, pod landing site, night. Groups of children huddle around campfires while Wendy and the other older kids set up emergency shelters. Away from the fire, Pete rocks back and forth as he stares at the now very scary stars. Dante gets Wendy's attention, nods in Pete's direction.
We could use 2 more hands.
Wendy walks over to Pete, sits next to him.
If it were just you and me, I'd let you wallow in whatever happened up there. But we're up shit creek and I never learned how to swim.
It's like Pete isn't even registering.
What happened, Pete? Is Dad?
Pete's rocking slows, but his tears don't. Wendy's emotions fight the thought of her father being dead and of the last word she spat at him in anger. But she bears it, controls it, subdues it.
We're all these kids have. And they trust you the most. If anyone can make them feel safe, it's you.
She gets up and goes back to build more shelters. Pete watches her go. Then his eyes land on the kids huddled around the fires. The kids. Memories flood Pete's mind, 6 months with them, teaching them, playing with them, growing to love them. He sighs so heavily that his body shudders. With immense effort, he joins Wendy in building a shelter. He works in silence for a bit, then...
We were attacked.
Interior, Pete's tent, night. Pete sleeps fitfully, monsters haunt his dreams. Outside the tent, a diffuse, glowing light appears. Exterior, campsite, night. A swarm of those little glowing bugs hover above the camp. A moan from Pete's tent catches their attention. They land on his tent. The glow ebbs and flows, waves of communication. Then the glow fades until all of them wink out, all but one. The bug moves towards the entrance, but the zipper stops it cold. Okay, plan B then. The bug amps up its glow and burns a hole in the tent. Interior, Pete's tent, night. The bugs crawl in and over every object in the tent, their shells mimicking whatever they touch. Perfect camouflage. The first one lands on Pete's bandaged wounds. It touches some dried blood, tastes it, and becomes agitated. It glows rapidly and several other bugs scramble over, stop nibbling at the bandages. Pete moans from the monsters in his dreams. The first bug flits up and hovers above Pete's troubled face, like it's deciding, yes, no. Then it lands next to Pete's head, crawls up into his hair, at the base of his neck. A second later, it begins to glow. After a few seconds, Pete's moaning ceases. Interior, Pete's tent, day. Pete sleeps silently. All of the bugs are gone.
Pete? Pete, wake up.
Pete stretches, opens his eyes. He feels good. Really good.
Come on, nuts. Get out here.
Exterior, pod landing site, day. Pete crawls out of his tent, sees everyone staring at him.
What's with the welcoming committee?
Wendy points at Pete's tent. He turns, sees hundreds of scorch marks on it, and one hole. Behind him, Wendy and Lily see the bug latched onto the base of Pete's skull.
Holy shit.
Pete, don't move.
What? Why?
Wendy moves his hair, examines the bug.
There's something on your neck.
Pete reaches back, feels the bug.
Oh, what is it? Get it off!
His fingers pry at it, causing the bug to dig in deeper.
Oh, God, Wendy!
Wendy pulls out a survival tool, flips open the blade. The bug reacts instantly and begins to glow.
No, don't!
What? Why?
I don't know. It's... Just don't do whatever you're about to do.
Wendy pockets the tool and the glow subsides. Pete turns, his mood happier by far than it should be. Weird.
I'm hungry. Are you hungry? I bet all these kids are hungry.
Pete marches off in search of food. Wendy and the older kids exchange worried glances. Interior, the Keystone, day. Huck soldiers. Dismantle whatever looks useful. Captain Smee tries to figure out the main control panel, his eyes bleary from the lack of sleep. He presses buttons, types in commands. Wonk. A negative response. He tries something else. Wonk. From behind, Captain Huck approaches and growls a question.
I'm trying, my lord.
Captain Huck grabs Smee's head, palms it like a baseball.
Try
Basketball.
Of course, my lord. If only your ship had tracked the captain's pod.
Captain Huck roars and slams a huge fist into the bulkhead. With a final growl, he stalks off the bridge towards Interior the Carnage, the Huck spaceship. Day. The ship looks worse on the inside than on the outside. Captain Huck heaves himself into his captain's chair.
Science officer.
The science officer turns and bows.
The escape pod. Where did it land?
Lord, our tracking devices are poor and we cannot.
Huck jams a knife blade into the science officer's neck. The science officer gurgles, is dead before he hits the floor. Captain Huck licks the blood from the blade, then points the business end of it at the junior science officer.
Find the pod.
Junior science officer gulps, then nods. Exterior, buff, day. Pete lays belly down and watches a herd of gargantuan, scary-looking alien animals grazing in the distance. Super. 2 days later. Wendy, Dante, and Fisher crawl up. They gasp at the sight of those enormous creatures.
They're harmless.
You possibly know that.
Pete points to the bug embedded in his neck.
Oh shit! It's talking to you?
Pete thinks about it.
No. I get these feelings.
Puberty finally kicking in?
Pete smiles in a way that gives Wendy the creeps.
Can Mr. Bug tell us what's safe to eat and what's not?
Pete looks down, eyes the turf of the purple glass, waits for a feeling, and gets it. He takes a bite of the grass. His face says it all.
It tastes like farts.
The group laughs, causing the creatures to stampede away. Exterior, canyon, day. The group walks along a dried-up riverbed. Pete stops in his tracks. His swagger and confidence are gone, replaced by his normal timidity. Wendy notices.
Pete?
Something's not right.
Maybe you should eat fart grass.
Fisher notices the bug glowing slightly.
Hector doing a number on you?
Gets stopped like it wants me to be afraid.
Well, then maybe there's something to be afraid of, and we should turn and...
Pete nods his nervous agreement as they come to a bend. At that moment, the bug glows rapidly. Pete almost barfs. He motions for silence. Pointing around the corner, Wendy looks and sees a small lake. At its center, a huge mound of mud and logs. In the middle, a huge clutch of eggs. Something built a home. Wendy looks at Pete like, big deal. Dante picks up a small rock and heaves it at the pond. The rock splashes, and giant alligator-like creatures explode from the water, looking to eat whatever fell in. They fight and thrash among themselves, exposing rows of deadly teeth, set in what looks like nightmarish smiles. Everyone pulls back out of view.
Time to go!
What the hell are those things?
Grinners.
What?
She peeks around the corner again. The creatures do look like they're grinning.
Name dibs?
I saw it first.
I named it first. Suck on that.
Dante huffs, but abides by the universal dibs laws.
Any chance I can get one of those bug things for myself?
Tinks.
What?
Name dibs.
Why Tinks?
It reminds me of the sound they make sometimes.
Pete slinks off, trying not to barf. The rest follow.
So, You think tinks have a name for us?
He shrugs.
All I get are feelings.
A teenage boy with feelings. It's a miracle. Did your tink at least guide you to water with the lower monster count?
Pete nods, that eerie calm returning.
Dante, you and Fisher head back and make sure the kids are okay. If these things exist, who knows what else does?
Dante and Fisher split off from Wendy and Pete. Behind them, one of the grinners ceases its thrashing. It sniffs the air, catching an unfamiliar scent. Exterior, weird forest, day. Wendy and Pete walk among the forest of weird trees, each with an upside-down umbrella canopy filled with fresh water. She fills her canteen, then greedily drinks. Pete waits for her, then guides her deeper into the forest. Interior, forest, day. Pete and Wendy stand before a massive rock outcropping surrounded by trees and a giant waterfall.
Welcome home.
It's a pile of boulders, Pete.
Tink's feeding me lots of good vibes. I think it's a... Yep, there's an entrance right here.
Behind them, a twig snaps and Tink glows in a panic. It takes Pete a second to understand.
Oh, shit!
Smash! A grinner smashes into the clearing. Pete and Wendy dash through a small opening in the rock face. The monster leaps, missing them by inches. Interior, passage, day. Sharp talons reach in after Pete and Wendy. A dozen feet in, the passage turns into a steep slide. Pete and Wendy slip down into the darkness. Interior, cave, day. Pete and Wendy tumble out of the passage into a dark cave.
So much for paradise.
As if on command, dozens of the tinks throughout the cave begin to glow, bathing the space in light. The room is vast, with ledges and tunnels in all directions, and everywhere you look, alien plants of all sorts grow.
Wow.
Cool!
She looks back. Here's the snarls of the grinner.
Is there another way out?
Pete shrugs. Interior, cave, day, moving. Pete and Wendy arrive at the forked passage. They start to go right, and a dozen tinks appear, light up, block their way.
Right is wrong. Left is right. Got it.
They walk through more passages and come to a natural chimney. Water trickles down around them. Light above, and the sound of rushing water. They climb up.
Hey, Justin?
Yeah.
I think maybe we'll take a quick bathroom break, 10 minutes.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay.